Hello and welcome to Immortal Behaviour for another week. I'm Danica Mason. Andrew Johns, good to see you and good to see the beanies.
Beanie and
the new jumpers as well.
Puffer jacket.
A puffer jacket.
I am so hot.
You can take it off, it's all good.
A bit of weight loss.
It was a great turnout. We went on a little walk yesterday to kick off Beanie for Brain Cancer Round. Good show of support.
Everyone was there. Everyone. Willie Mason was there.
Really? Yeah.
Everyone. So it was everyone comes together from the NRL. It's a great weekend. The Mark Hughes Foundation is raising so much money. He wants to find a cure for brain cancer. And Mark is so selfless and how much energy he puts in. And it's rare these days, but he doesn't take any wage at all for how much he does, not only in Newcastle and the Hunter Valley, but all around. The other day I spoke to him, he was on a plane to Armidale. So everyone's right behind it. Special mention to my old teammate Adam McDougall. He's donated, I think, over 500,000 when the man shakes. But it's just sensational the way everyone comes together and the way Mark is the figurehead for this. It's incredible.
We did a story with him, we did an interview with him that will run on Sunday. It's a really nice feature, but it's remarkable the amount of time, effort, energy. He's just going, even yesterday, going from one thing to the next just to raise money. And he was saying that they're trying to raise money to get, in rugby league terms, a marquee signing, as in a head researcher. Yeah. Because so many other cancers, they have, so much research behind it, and brain cancer is one of the ones that doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's less funding too, and I think people under 40 or 50, it's the most people die from brain cancer or something. Anyway.
Yeah, so.
He's doing a great thing. I think everyone can see the person Mark is. All his teammates and all his friends love him dearly, and we're right behind him, as is everyone else in rugby league.
So make sure you go out, buy your beanie. You can get them online. You can get them at IGA stores. You can get them at the footy as well.
They keep you very hot, especially indoor.
You're going to start sweating this. All right, well, let's move on and talk some of the footy. Now, let's talk Cameron Munster in particular. So in Origin, a little bit of a kick to one of the New South Wales players, Lee Martin.
That was
How
right
surprised
in front of me.
he only got it
10 metres away from me. Now, I don't know if you call them the good old days or the bad old days. Back when it was stiff arms and whatever, catch and kill. A trip or a kick was an instant send-off. It was like a complete no-no. Where nowadays, you hit someone with a feather in the face and you get sin bin or sent off. But it seems like trips or, whether you call it gamesmanship, but he lashed out with the boot. So I thought he was very lucky to get away with the fine in Origin. Then he backed it up on the weekend. So Munster maybe needs to pull it back a little bit.
Now, there was an incident that we'll show you here. Munster deliberately runs into a New South Wales player.
It's Liam Martin.
And no penalty is given.
So here's a bit of argy-bargy. Look, I haven't got a real problem with this one. It's just a bit of gamesmanship. But, look, we know it's officiated different state of origin, but that was in a club game. That's an out-and-out penalty. Deliberately goes out of his way, and Xavier Coates takes advantage of where Liam Martin would be. So, Origin's referee different, but I always say about the bunker imposing itself on the game. If that was club land, it would have been a penalty. Anyway,
he's getting away with a little bit at the moment.
Well, that's the way
Cam
he
Munster.
plays. That's the way he plays. He plays on the edge. But, the striking out with the boot, I thought he was very lucky not to get suspended.
What do you expect to see from him come Origin 2 then?
Oh, well, without doubt, he'll be the best player on the field for Queensland. Look, it depends on his forwards. His forwards were well and truly dominated in game one, which makes it hard for a half or 5'8", but he's one of the players who can impose himself on a game, even when the team's going backwards. So, look, he'll have a big game up there without a doubt.
Now, what about Boyd Cordner? Some big news this week, announcing his retirement from the game. What did you think when you heard this news?
I was probably glad that it's happened. I remember when he first started getting some concussions, I texted his dad, Spud. His dad's like old school, bit of a country rugby league legend. And I texted Spud, said, a bit worried about Boydo getting these headshots, and he was like, you'll be right, blah, blah, blah. But then after retirement, I text his dad, text Boydo too, and just said, mate, I'm glad it's finished up. And his dad said, yeah, so am I. So I think it's a big relief for Boyd, and spoke to him about it. He just said, his heart was still in it, still wanted to play, but he said he had this little bit of doubt in his head. So, very unselfish thing to do, Boydo. He retired, and wouldn't matter what era he played in, this bloke is just a warrior. Everyone loved the way he played, but he's a champion guy, great leader. When he captained New South Wales, and the players just revered him. So, good luck to his next endeavour, whatever he does. So, yeah, absolute legend.
I don't think I've seen a retirement where there were so many players from other teams who all arrived there. Former players, Mitch Pearce, Todd Carney, I think Wade Graham may have been there as well. There's so many, like, you can just see the impact that he's had on so many other people. And even speaking to Ryan Madison at the Eagles, he said he rang him up straight away.
Yeah. Well, mate, everyone loves him. Everyone loves Boydo. No one's got a bad word to say about him. Everyone respects the way he played and the way he carried himself off the field. So, yeah, a true legend.
Head coach in the future? You don't reckon?
No.
What do you think?
I don't know. I think I spoke to him about it. He said he's just going to sit back and put his feet up and take a breath and then see where he goes from there. But he's the sort of guy I don't think the Roosters would want him out of their system, somewhere involved, doing some assistant coaching or whatever. I don't see Boyd as a head coach.
Why is that? What?
I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't see him as that sort of person. I think he'd be a great sort of guy. They do all that leadership, whatever, within a club. I think he'd be great at that. Very smart, the way he can educate back rowers about the way they play, and sort of player that when he speaks, people listen. So, but I don't see him as a head coach.
Now, we have, in this era of rugby league, there has been a lot of focus, and the NRL is quite cautious with head knocks and concussions, as they should be. In your era, you had a number of concussions yourself. Do you think that if you were playing now, that you potentially might not have played your career as long as what you did?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Talk about hypotheticals, but all of my concussions except for one was from defending, from tackling and tackling low. So I had a history of being concussed or knocked out from dropping my head, hitting blokes low, but I'd be hitting elbows, knees, hips, other teams' heads, that sort of thing. So I probably had a flaw in my tackle technique, where if I was playing nowadays, I'd have to change the way I tackled. So it's such a fine line. That's the thing. Players now are taught to tackle high, and I've spoke to some tackling coaches. Don't want to say who they are, defensive coaches who are the best in the game. And they talk about the target area is about here, just around top of the solar plexus, up under the ball. So when they're moving forward, and when a player especially drops, it's just so hard when they've got their feet in position, they cannot disappear. And the young guy from Brisbane on the weekend, young guy Hetherington, when he got sent off, when when he was falling, he got an ankle tap. He actually's got his feet in a position to tackle, and if anything, he sort of stops, he doesn't drive, and look, Corey hits his shoulder and he gets sent off, but he cannot disappear. That's the tough thing. Now, Tamana Tahu, he's talking to people from Harvard, from all these universities, about changing the tackle technique, and he was talking the same thing. The target area is about him. The big thing for them is not to drop your head. Actually, I was always taught to keep your chin in your chest to protect your sort of head and your neck. He's talking about they've got to be looking up. I hope I'm getting it right, but he said the target area is around here. So when the defence is moving up quick and someone falls, it's just so hard.
Well, that's the thing, because the game's so fast, and
look, I've been saying it. They need to get everyone in a room, the powers that be, and the doctors and the lawyers who I think are advising people at the NRL, players, defensive coaches, and get in there and talk about the techniques and work out some sort of strategy and a plan, because at the moment I think it's just policy on the
Well, because even Wade Graham was saying that earlier on in the season, when he had some bad concussions, he admitted himself, he said it's a lot to do with my tackling technique, and he was working on that. And then even when he suffered that head knock last week, his coach came out and said, it's something that he has been trying to work on, his tackling technique. So,
well, Jake Friend was the same. I mean,
but it's difficult when you've been tackling a certain way your whole career.
It's hard to break those habits. It's hard to break habits.
Well, with the Roosters, they have
habits back.
Let's not talk about habits.
But it's an area where I think we all have to get in a room. The defensive coach, coaches, players, ex-players, people from the NRL come up with some sort of strategy, because at the moment, you got to understand the sin bin has such an influence on the game. It changes the momentum of the game and everything. So, yeah, we need to sort it out.
Well, still on the Roosters, we've seen the retirement of Cordner, Friend, Morris as well. Bit of room in their salary cap now. What do you think the chances are? Maybe a Brandon
I don't know how
Smith?
much room they'd have, because obviously Joseph Sawali's gone in there, spent a fair chunk there. Sam Walker would have been, he's got to keep a hold of him for as long as possible. So I don't know how much would be in the cap, but Brendan Smith would fit perfect in there, without a doubt. He'd be good in the eastern suburbs too, Brendan.
Why do you say
What
that?
could possibly go wrong? Every night's a Saturday night in the eastern suburbs, apparently.
Well, the thing is, though, he living down in Melbourne, no one really recognises you as soon as you move to Sydney.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, but he'd be great. He'd be great, and he's so good for a club and such a infectious personality. He'd be a great buy.
Well, let's talk about Origin and backing up for Origin, because we've seen, obviously, the Panthers, they've struggled during this time, 2 losses because they're missing, well, pretty much half their team.
Superstars, yeah.
What was it like for you backing up after Origin?
I found it fine. It was like a couple of days later. Look, it was hard physically, but it was more hard mentally. You saw, but at the end of the Origin series, you are flat as a pancake. So back then, I think I got rested one game 1 year, which I didn't want to, but looking back, you got to manage it so much, because if you're playing all the games, it's just mentally and physically it can really take its toll. So, but that's the game. In my position, it was a bit easier because I was playing halfback, but it would have been hard playing front row in those positions. But the clubs manage it well.
How do you think the Panthers will go this week against the Roosters?
I think they'll make a real statement. I think the superstars of the team, Luai, Nathan, To'o, all of them. There's pretty much 5 players who played rep footy. They would have watched the last couple of weeks with them not being there. There'd be a certain amount of guilt. They want to come out and make a statement. I think they'll have a huge win, big win. And no Sam Walker. I understand he's not playing, so it puts even more pressure on their depth.
And at Penrith as well too.
At Penrith,
they love playing
out
there.
At Penrith. Be a great game. Looking forward to this one.
Do you read a lot into? Do you think we read a lot more into this Origin period, where at the end of the year it might not really impact it?
Well, it depends on the individual, and it depends on the way the clubs manage it. It can really burn you out, especially a young player. Emotionally, coming into Origin, emotionally, it can just be so difficult. So, as I said, they're smart enough now to deal with it with sports science, physically, but also coaches and how they rest their players. All
right, well, Victor Radley, been in a little bit of trouble this week, kicked off a flight.
Kindergarten stuff. He
went up to watch his good mate debut, a little bit too rowdy on the flight. How do you think...
Well, it's hard to say what happened unless you're there.
Exactly.
And I've heard different accounts. If you listen to different people, I understand a few people around him were laughing pretty loud, and they just came down and said, look, you have to go. And there was no back chat or anything or pushback from Victor. He got up and said, yeah, right, I'll get off. So,
how do you think that chat would have gone down with Trent Robinson?
Well, I saw Trent Robinson's press conference, and he looked like one of those disappointed parents. So look, we all know he's a great coach and great man manager, and you heard Boyd Cordner, the way he spoke about Trent Robinson. They all respect him so much, so I dare say Victor will be getting the silent treatment, and he would have learned his lesson.
Well, in that press conference, Robbo said that he needs to act like a man in public. If you got to sit down with Victor at your local Bronte cafe, what advice would you give to him?
Well, it's hard because his personality, we know he's a scallywag,
and we love him for it.
We love him for it, but you got to be so careful, and these days everyone's got a camera, everyone wants to give people up on social media. So look, Vic, if you're going to have a beer, just go to somewhere safe, go to a mate's place, go to certain pubs where you know you're going to be looked after. But pretty much, you just got to be careful. You got to have your guard up the whole time. If you're going to have a beer and a true beer, Go to a mate's place.
When you say got in a little bit of trouble back in your career, what was it? What were those chats with the coach like? Would you dread them? Would you be like, no, I don't want to?
Oh, just, you know what? When you walk in their office and the door closes, just, no, here we go again.
What was your plan of attack? Would you just say sorry from the get-go and just hope that it's...
I'd just turn the tears on, start bawling my eyes out.
Who did you do that to?
No, you know what? I can't even really remember it. It's just, it was a different life. It's just totally different person back then. I think back and just go, what were you thinking, you absolute peanut?
Did you know that you were on a bit of a short leash for a while and you had to...
Yep.
How long would that last?
Till I got me in the match, which is probably 3 days later. No, I'm joking. But they were the years before mobile phones. So it was just hearsay. It's a bit different hearsay to,
Yeah.
look at him, he's doing cartwheels.
What are
on the podium.
3 best words in the English language? Deny, deny, deny.
Kids, don't listen. Don't listen to Arnie Deniker. It's going to get you in trouble.
All right, well, that is all we have time for this week's episode of Immortal Behaviour. Enjoy the footy over the weekend, and we'll catch you again next week.